Welcome back to the Valley to Peak podcast. I'm joined by Mark from EXO today, and we just returned from Arizona and the 2025 Death Hike after attempting the Grand Canyon rim to rim to rim twice. We'll dive into some of the specifics, but I always think that it's fun to at least open this. Mark, generally speaking, what's your overall takeaway of the weekend last weekend since we've returned?
Yeah, this one was very different than previous death hikes. In a weird way, they're very different hikes, but the feeling that I have from this one is I don't think I've felt this way since the first one, it sounds really weird, but the sense of uh like satisfaction and accomplishment in a way is some of them I've done in the past and have like checked off the box or completed the mission or done it. But it has been such a suffer fest that it was hard to just walk away and feel accomplished. I just felt like, yeah, I did it. It crushed me. I learned from it, but I didn't come back from it necessarily energized. I felt more beat up in a way. This one, I'm just coming back from feeling really energized, really accomplished, really happy in a way, um, which is refreshing. Because sometimes we talk about the death hike and we just talk about like suffering and grueling and grinding or whatever. And there was some hard moments on this one, but overall, I don't know, I've come back with a big smile, not like a sufferfest type thing. I don't know if that makes sense.
Do you feel like, um, do you feel like since you don't have that element of it being as big of a sufferfest as previous ones did, do you feel like there's less accomplishment in it, if that makes sense?
No, simply because I think the ones where you like really go and suffer are ones where you learn a lot about yourself, which is a really good thing. And they're ones where you prove something to yourself, meaning like you're suffering because you did something incredibly hard, and maybe you did something that was like felt past your limit until you did it. It's like you suffered through it because you were pushing your limits so hard. And you usually learn about yourself. You go to a dark place, either mentally or physically, and you come out on the other side. So there's a lot of value in those Sufferfest ones. Um, I've done plenty of that, whether it's on a death hike or other kind of difficult things. So it's not that I don't ever need to do that again, but I don't feel like I needed that now for where I'm at personally to like go learn something new about myself or to push my limits. This one I felt like I pushed my limits in a way of not elevation and feel that good the next day. So I still feel like I learned something about myself and was like, did something new, but it was just more of on the energizing side than the suffering side, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely makes
I don't
sense.
know how to explain it. I don't know. Some of this may not make sense until you experience some of the latter. Yeah, I don't know how to explain it.
I think it'll make sense as we keep talking about it. 'Cause some of the questions I had were on that. So if, we could go into the day by day, day one, day two, things that we, took away from that. But I think a good place to start, and I only know this because we talk so much, outside of podcasts and stuff. Starting with training, I know that training was quite a bit different for both of us this year leading into this. How would you describe your training going into this one and how it was different than years past?
Yeah, from a very high level, I had less miles and less time on my feet and less elevation gain and loss. Which, when you say less of all three of those things, it's like, wait, aren't those the three things you're supposed to be doing to prepare for something like the death hike? Like, do some miles, do time on your feet, and do elevation. Um, and so on one hand, I felt not ill prepared, but less than ideally prepared. But I was just working with very real limitations on time and other factors. Um, and I was doing more of, I'd like to hear kind of you explain, because you and I both, I think, have trained our training in the last couple of years for death hikes, but also for hunting in similar ways, and had found it just to be really effective. But for me, it was I had one long hike in the months leading up to the death hike. It was a 30-mile hike I did with some buddies. And that was the only real mileage I had in real time on my feet. Aside from that, there's a lot of, I paired together small chunks of workouts, essentially. It was really hard for me to find the time to go do any given workout that was longer than 2 hours. But there was days where I would go for a 2 hour hike, come home, find 45 minutes later to do some step ups or something in the garage, and then find like another hour to go on another walk or hike, even if it was not, I struggled to call it a workout because I was like, sometimes it was with my son or with my wife. So we weren't going hard, but it was still like getting out and moving. So I had plenty of days where at the end of the day, I was able to piece together 4 hours of movement, but there was very few like 4 hours of workouts, if that makes sense.
I'm kind of smiling because this is where I both love and hate Strava. I could do something in the morning for my workout. I'll get on because you and I follow each other on Strava, and I'll see you hit a second, and I'll see you hit a third. I'm like, nope, I'm finding something to do. But I would say that my approach has mirrored yours, and part of this is just kind of based off of past experiences where, leading into a lot of these death hikes, I would follow a really, really great structured plan to the T as it said on paper. And I would show up to the start of these nursing something, some ache, some pain, some injury, some overuse, something. And while that's part of what made me realize, like, maybe there's a different way to do this, the other thing that made me realize there has to be a different way to do this was my time limitations, this year. And so I'd say, like, the way that this varied for me in a couple of different ways was I had a plan, but I also really listened to my body. So if I woke up and I had written down for that day some really challenging circuit workout of some kind, and I could just tell that I didn't have it in me to really go and do that in a way that made me better, right? To really not just go through the motions, but to really put some mind and thought to it, I would do something that was less difficult and wait till I felt better to do that. And so I used the training plan not as an absolute mandate, but as a guide, and then I would alter the guide as I wanted to. The other thing that I did different was, I treated all of the data, all of the metrics that I would track as information rather than mandates as well. So in the middle of the workout, if I would, look at my heart rate and my chest strap, and it's supposed to be a zone 2 workout or whatever, and it would say I'm in zone 3, but I felt okay, I would just keep going at that same rate or same pace. And likewise, if I felt like, man, I am just totally gassed, but my watch said zone 2, I would slow down until I felt like I was in a pretty manageable heart rate. So I think overall, like, the overall theme was I did way less, but was much more intentional. And ultimately what that led to was me feeling really, really, really great at the beginning of the hike. So, I think from here out, I'm going to keep doing that, right? And I've always found that when you have good structure and good intentionality, it's almost always better than just this absolute mandate on paper that just doesn't make sense, though. It doesn't make sense either. The other thing that I found, and I don't know if this is true for you or not too, but it seems like the body, we're sort of in a day and age where we are so metric driven. And I think what that's caused people to do is to feel like there is a perfect plan. And for me to feel my best, that perfect plan needs to be executed with perfection. And it seems like what I've observed over the years is that there's like a bell-shaped curve where you need to probably do more than you're typically doing, but once you reach a certain point, call it a saturation point, anything above and beyond that, you know, is there's minimal amounts to be gained, if anything, once you reach that point. And the alluring thing to just staying to that point as opposed to trying to push yourself even further beyond it is you're so much more less likely to have all these overuse problems. You just feel so much better walking into the actual hike or event itself, and you preserve so much just to be able to, lay it all out on the actual hike whenever you get there. So, yeah, I think, going into this year, I felt better than I ever have, which is probably why I feel like I did better than I ever have and felt better than I ever have afterwards too. So, yeah, I think the lessons there is I'll probably never train the way that I used to and keep using kind of what you and I followed leading into this one.
Yeah, the perfection thing in the past when I've tried to either stick with a very structured program and do what you said, like ignore how I feel and do what's on the paper or what's on the plan. That's created issues. The other thing is whether it's been someone's plan or my own plan that I create months in advance, which I've done plenty of that over the years, is just, hey, I know enough to know how to write a training plan or progression for myself. Um, and I'll look with something like the death hike, you have a goal in the future, or a big hunt, you have a goal in the future. So I'll just like work backwards from that and then create 2 or 3 months of training. I've done that in ways in the past where it would have been very effective, maybe a little bit too ambitious, and I've stuck with it. But I nailed the training from a perfect place, but I didn't nail recovery, or I I gave up some too much sleep at the expense of getting the training in that I wanted or that I thought I needed. And this year, more than any other, I realized that rather than have perfect training and then start to give up other things, feeling good, fatigue, sleep, rest, etc. I was just like, what if I did 80%, kind of the 80-20 rule. We talk about nutrition or whatever, but it's like maybe this training isn't perfect, at least in my head, but I'm giving it 80%, but I'm also getting 80-20 on sleep, and I'm also getting 80-20 on recovery, and I'm also getting 80-20 on nutrition, and I'm getting 80-20 on mobility. And so I don't feel like I did any one thing at an incredibly high level this year, but I do feel like I tried to balance actual training with keeping decent sleep, with keeping good nutrition, with doing some of the for me, what is like non-sexy or almost feels like a waste of time, like rehab type band work, stretching, etc. I just did a little bit of everything pretty well. And I never have felt better.
So I feel like the nutrition topic could be a snooze fest if we just go through our food list. We both created a food list. I'll put that in the show notes, but I feel like it'll naturally come in as we kind of go through the day by day, and we'll talk about, maybe what we did different this year compared to years past. So going into day by day, even leading into the trip, starting with day one, what was your overall thoughts?
I was really excited to do it. I was excited to have the experience. I was eager to go do the hike and see what happened, like see how I could perform. I was excited to see all the guys, like that's part of the fun. I was honestly excited to get it over with in the sense of not, it takes a lot of mental energy, like thinking about it, preparing for it, knowing that it's coming, even if it's not the forefront of your mind, like there's this mental demand of like the death hike's coming, the death hike's 6 weeks away. Ooh, the death hike's 5 weeks away. And I was eager to just be like, I just want to go do the thing and then not have it looming over my head. So yeah, I was really looking forward to it, honestly, for a whole bunch of reasons. Of doing it, of having experience, of seeing the guys, of getting it done. And for me, the start to this trip, and I only bring this up not because people care about my story or my experience, but I feel like this can happen with a lot of things, is I had a super early wake up call to get on an early flight to get to Vegas where we were all meeting essentially. So I woke up at 2 something in the morning to drive an hour to the airport to get on a crazy early flight, boarded my flight, sitting on the flight, waiting to take off. And then eventually the captain comes on and is like, hey, we have a maintenance issue. This plane came in last night overnight. Maintenance fixed something overnight. But when they fixed it, they messed it up worse, basically. So this flight, like unknown delay. And I already have a pretty tight travel schedule to get there. So there wasn't any good information. So I started processing alternatives. Delay kept going. I finally figured out an alternative. That was kind of a sketchy plan to make. Long story short, I ended up missing my flight, making another connection, rebooking flights, missing everyone in Vegas and all the shuttles to the Grand Canyon, which meant that I then needed to scramble, find my own rental car in Vegas, pay for that, trouble from getting to Vegas to then getting the rental car to then driving by myself to then get to the Grand Canyon. And so there, again, my story doesn't matter. I'm just bringing up the fact of from the beginning, nothing was going well. Like before I even got there. Um, and I've just learned over the years with stuff like this, or again, hunting trips, whatever, it is so easy to get in your head or to get down or to start thinking like, oh, the whole trip is screwed. I'm going to get there later. I'm not going to be rested. Yes, there is added stress and all that stuff. It's really, I don't know. It's just like a mental thing where you just have to be like, I'm just going to keep making the next best decision and try and get there and make the best of it and not let this derail me mentally. And that is, I'm a planner, dude. So when the plan starts going out the window, and I've worked hard towards something and it's not going my way, me years ago, I think a little less experienced, a little more immature would have really let that rattled me. And anymore, I've just learned you just have to go with the flow. And like I said, make the next best decision and keep going. And at the end of the day, I showed up to the Grand Canyon not too far after some other people did and was able to do the hike.
What I love most about that is like that is the theme of the death hike. You think about these big things and you think, man, there's got to be like really great communication leading into this. And there is no communication leading into this, right? Like you might get some information 5 days out on some specifics. But even on the hike itself, and I think Steve's intentionally does that too. I think that's part of it is you don't need to know a lot. You commit and then you figure it out. And
Yeah.
that's what makes the death hike so special to me, at least for me personally. One of the things that I've taken away over the years is exactly like you're saying. I am a planner and I will plan, plan A, B, C, D, E, F, and G if I can. And you just can't. You start to learn about yourself. You know what? I'm pretty good at trying to figure out what to do when dealt with a series of options at any given point. There's only so many options that you've got. You choose one, you go with it. If it doesn't work, then you go the other way. And so, yeah, you came rolling in super late, but even as you recount that, it's fun for me to hear because to me that is like your death hike started at 2:30 a.m. once your flight got delayed, and the rest of us were sitting around in a campground in the Grand Canyon waiting to go. So yeah, that was leading into it is always fun. It's always great to see everyone. And so from our end, we got there fairly early and set up all of our tents, set up all of our camps. Brian Chapman, who drives over from Colorado, brings like a cook set. So we had spaghetti that night that he had cooked. So big shout out to he and his wife because they've done that a couple of years in a row. And that's always blows Mountain House out of the water, homemade spaghetti and garlic bread and banana bread. So yeah, we all got to sleep fairly decent that night, if I remember right. I think we went to bed at like 10, it wasn't late, 11, something like that.
Yeah, everybody was tucked in by that time for sure. I think closer to 10 than 11. Yeah.
We had a 4 a.m. call, which was basically at 4 a.m. is when everybody was going to get together and we were all going to start marching towards the South Rim and begin day one. Sleep was okay. We were right by a highway. So I don't know that I slept much, part nerves and anxiousness, anticipation, cars passing through the night or whatever. But slowly but surely, 4 a.m. the next day came.
Yeah.
How was day one?
It was good. This one, if you take death hikes as a whole, a lot of times we're doing something new or new to us, right? Like new country or whatever. This one was unique because it was the second year. I mean, back-to-back years in the Grand Canyon. So there wasn't this, like normally you would get up on something new, 4 a.m., you're in the dark and you're like, ooh, what's this going to be like? I know nothing until the sun rises. This one was different because it was like, we did this last year. We started at 4 a.m. last year. We started from the same campground last year. We know that this 2.5 mile hike from our campground to actually getting to the rim, there's just a lot of familiarity. And lessons learned. One of the lessons last year was everyone's excited last year. It is new for almost everyone last year. And just the general energy and excitement. I think a lot of guys went out too hard and had too fast of a pace early last year. And so this year I was like, hey, here's the pace I want to do. And whoever that puts me by, whether it's by five guys or by myself, this is the pace that I just want to do, really from the very beginning and pretty much for all first day. So yeah, it was easy. It was a little bit warmer than last year. It wasn't quite as cold at the start, which was nice. But yeah, you're starting in the dark. There's still a lot of excitement on not only being here and doing the hike, but the experience of descending off the South Rim. South Kaibab Trail starts with these really steep switchbacks. It's dark. It's a really cool experience in the dark, seeing all these headlamps moving around and doing switchbacks. And then eventually you begin to see the sun, and then you're watching the sunrise. I mean, it's just, for that alone, it's just such a cool experience.
Yeah, last year when Steve started putting together Death Hike plans and he proposed this idea of going over there, it's kind of like, man, a national park? Steve, you want to do the Death Hike in a national park? Which, did not matter. He could say he wanted to do it in the Boise Zoo and I would be there. But still, you're like, God, that just sounds like a lot of people. And none of us are drawing the people, so I don't know how this is going to work. I almost feel like, as stupid as this is going to sound because we've only been twice, I almost feel like it's just this really special place to me individually because of, those dark hikes on the South Rim, and sort of got this. I wouldn't be shocked if he's like, let's go back.
Yeah.
It is just a cool and a special place, and it is a national park, and it can get busy at times, but to be in there as opposed to around it, right? To be on the South Rim as opposed to dropping into the South Rim. Man, there's just not many places like that I've been. That's that cool. So yeah, I was the same way. One thing that was unique and really was to my advantage and probably to all of our advantages this year was we had been there. So a lot of that pre-trip nerves of, curiosity and wondering what it's going to be like, and am I going to be able to route find correctly? What if I get stuck by myself, in some hole off trail? All of these scenarios was gone. I mean, it was essentially just strategy at that point. How am I going to get through day one so I feel good enough to go into day two? And then what's day two going to look like as well? And so, yeah, the same thing for me. What was different for me this year on day one than last year was I felt excellent. I mean, all the way through the North Rim. Last year, I got for some reason really nauseous going up the North Rim, and it just hammered me and my time. But this year, I made great time. Got to the North Rim, and I don't know what the time was, but felt really great. Fell apart going up the South Rim by myself, but that's another story.
So that first half you just mentioned, going from South Rim down through the bottom up to North Rim,
Yeah,
conditions, it was more difficult this year,
yeah,
but you felt better and performed better this year.
yeah.
What do you equate that to? Because last year would have been the year to feel like, based on these conditions alone, it would have been so much easier compared to this year. But your experience compared to the conditions is like a flip flop.
Yeah, it's a good question, and it's a question I don't know the answer to, which makes me think if I detach myself from this and speak as though like I'm dealing with a client who comes with these same issues because we have that, I think it's an anomaly, right? I mean, sometimes, and you've said this before, I think it's such a great summary. If you feel good now, wait. If you feel bad now, wait, because it's going to switch, right? You're going to feel great, you're going to feel bad, and if you feel bad, you're going to feel good. And so when you do big things like, 50, 100 miles and 20,000 feet of vert, your body just does weird stuff. And the one thing that I can think nutritionally that I did different this year as opposed to last was I kept a bigger bottle of water handy and a smaller bottle of Tailwind. Last year I had water, but it was in a side pocket that I had to stop and pull out. I couldn't grab it. And so this year, both of them were on the water bottle, the Nalgene carriers that, attach to the Exos. And I was hammering water the whole time. And that I think definitely helped. In fact, like I only went through about a third of my Tailwind in the entire weekend. That stuff, like that Gatorade, I don't think it's product specific. I just think it's lukewarm at best. It's really sweet, even the Tailwind, and it's tough for me to get in. So I really rely pretty heavy on food. Mashed potatoes did excellent again, so that's, my generally my highest salt intake, but yeah, I ate regularly the entire way down and was with you guys for a little bit, and then you pulled away, caught up with Steve and them, and then ended up hiking up the North Rim with Jack, Tayson, somebody else, oh Corey Ford, and then Will had got there just before us. So yeah, it felt great, and then then it was time to come back.
Yeah. Yeah, day one, the climb up that North Rim, like I mentioned, the conditions were notable. Last year we were really fortunate on that North Rim climb. It got cloudy, it got breezy, temperatures dropped, it even snowed slash rained a little bit.
Yeah.
But it was really good for the climb, whereas this year it was definitely dry, it was hotter, it was less breezy. And I definitely felt the difference, but overall, yeah, I didn't look closely at comparing numbers, but roughly was right on pace or maybe a little bit ahead of pace just in terms of doing that first rim to rim and felt really good when I got there. But going back to what you mentioned earlier, going into this hike this year for me, day one it was nothing. I called it the buy-in. Like in CrossFit, which I don't really do, but I'm familiar with the concept. They'll have a workout, and before the real workout begins, they'll have a buy-in. And the buy-in could be, hey, you got to do 100 burpees, and then you start the workout. For me, day one was just a buy-in. I was here for day two. Day one didn't matter. Things started on day two. And so I just knew and kept telling myself going into the hike mentally, however you feel doesn't matter on day one. It doesn't matter if you feel great. It also doesn't matter if you feel bad. And I even told this to a few times when I'd run into somebody and they'd ask how you feel. I'm like, it doesn't matter. And I didn't just say it bluntly and walk away like I'm David Goggins or something, like I'm hard. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, feelings don't matter. But I would say like, man, doesn't matter how I feel right now. I'm just looking forward to tomorrow type thing. And that not only was that true because of how I was looking at this hike, I just think that's true in general when you have any long effort, whether it's a depth hike, you're running a marathon, you're doing a long race, you're doing a multi-day hunt. There's such a mistake that we make that I've made in the past of you um we take our current reality and we project it into the future. And so like if we feel really crappy right now, whether maybe it's not an event, maybe it's just life, we begin to think, gosh, it's going to be this way forever, or I'm going to feel this way forever. When in all reality, now is now, future is the future. And you have to know that not only will you feel different in the future, but you can feel different in the future just by making changes. And so I just try to stay really present and go, yeah, okay, whatever. I feel good right now or I feel bad right now. That doesn't matter. I'm just going to keep going, and how I feel is going to change.
Yeah. No, I think that's spot on and so good. Yeah, the first day for me, I felt pretty confident I felt very confident I could do it. The question was how I would feel once done. What's interesting and difficult for me every year on something like this is controlling my pace because my stride is so much shorter. I mean, I'm the shortest dude there by far. It's so much shorter than a lot of guys that I almost have to keep a pretty good pace if I want any hope of like hiking with anyone. And these things are so much better when you're with somebody, right? As opposed to solo by yourself the whole time. But I felt great the first day. Coming back, I was with Justin Nelson for basically the entire time from North Rim all the way to the South Rim. And then we went to the South Rim. And again, anomaly, I think, but I fell apart going up that thing. I went up that, by myself and I was I, I was not doing good. Not like in a dramatic sense. I just was not doing nearly as well as I was on the North Rim. And looking
Like an
at it,
energy perspective.
yeah, I think I was physically exhausted in the sense of I was sleepy. I was just tired and out of it and just totally wiped out from the previous day's travel, having had not slept to the point of where I had not had this happen before, but I would be walking up the South Rim back to the top and sleeping. I would like catch myself in the middle of a dream and then wake up and be walking, which is okay until you realize like some of that stuff's fairly exposed. So I remember simultaneously thinking, you can't get too fancy here, because if you misstep, there are places along there that's, it's not going to be great for you. There's other places where it's not a big deal, but yeah, I just remember being so out of it finally. And in that moment, this kind of speaks to what you had said. And, for people who maybe are new to doing this stuff, hopefully some of these little tidbits are helpful. In that moment, the only thing that I can keep reminding myself of is eating an elephant. It's one step at a time. And if you at least keep putting one foot in front of the other, eventually, maybe 5 hours, maybe 7 hours, maybe 24 hours, but eventually you are going to get to the top. And so as long as you keep moving, even if slow, even if you don't feel good, you're eventually going to get to the top. And as soon as I crested that South Rim and got to the top, it was like I was a new man, dude.
Yeah.
I was so happy to see that. And when I get there, there's two vans there, and there's a group down in the canyon that's running the rim to rim to rim called All Day Running Co. And they've got a group called the Adventure Group. I know nothing about it beyond that. These two women get out of the van and they're like, "Hey, are you such and such with this group?" And there was a guy 1,000 feet down from the rim who was passing out water bottles with the group. So I was already aware of it and just said, "No, I'm not with your group. I appreciate you asking." So they asked what we'd been doing down there. And told her we're trying to do rim to rim twice. And she's like, "Hey, do you want a burger?" And I was like, you're a godsend from heaven. Absolutely, I want a burger. So they pull out a quarter pounder with cheese, French fries, and a cold Coke. And I'm like, here you go. Good
Like
luck.
actual McDonald's quarter pounder with
Actual
cheese?
McDonald's. She's like, it's not as hot as it was. I'm like, I don't care if it's frozen. I'll eat it right now. And so they hand me, all of this, and I still don't feel super great. So I'm a little disoriented on how to get back to camp because camp's 3 miles from the rim. And so I've got the map up on my phone, like trying to figure out where I'm at and how to get back there, eating a quarter pounder but feeling great because I've, made it to the South Rim. And so, yeah, eventually I end up, eating part of it, shoving it in my pack, getting back to camp. I get back to camp and it's like, man, I think it was like 11:30 p.m., maybe midnight by the time I actually fell asleep. And at that point, I had no clue what the status was on day two. I knew some people were still behind me because I had passed all of them. There were still several guys in the canyon at that point. Several guys were already at camp, and the ones already at camp were asleep. And there hadn't been, at least to my knowledge, any communication about, hey, we're going to get up and do round two tomorrow at X, Y, or Z time. And so, I basically set an alarm for like 6 a.m. thinking either I'm going to go back in by myself, nobody's going back in, or it'll kind of be a wait and see thing for day two. So go to sleep, wake up, day two. How are you feeling?
Yeah, it was pretty similar to you of getting back. Steve and I got back together. We had passed O'Berty, so we knew he was making round two. He was going straight through the night. And then there was two guys in camp ahead of us, Bashma and Bloomquist. And when you get to the rim, you get service. And I turned my phone on and I had a text from Bashma that said, "Hey, back at camp, planning on waking up at 6 tomorrow for round two." So I knew, like, okay, at least Bashma's getting up. Walking back towards camp, I was more on the line of, I just want to get maybe 4 hours of sleep, um, and then get up and do run two. But I also felt like, similar to you, like I'm tired. Like not only the night before the hike, we had that little bit of sleep at camp, but again, the night before that, I had 4 hours of sleep because I had to get up at 2 something in the morning. I'm like 2 consecutive hours of 4 nights of sleep, a third hour of 4 hours of crappy sleep. I kind of was like, okay, if Boschman's leaving at 6, I'll leave with Boschma. So that was my plan. Um, and then yeah, so I woke up before that. I wasn't sleeping great. And then there was a few guys up and stirring. Boschma was up and stirring. I forget at what point it happened, but I knew Tayson and Brigham were gonna go. And then found out here we are, it's getting close to 6 a.m. So it's 26 hours since we started round one. And there's still guys in the canyon from round one. And I was like, what? So there's a couple guys who hadn't made it back to camp yet, and we're 26 hours in. And so it went from a somewhat, like, once we found that out, it was like, all right, let's get out of here. Let's go check on these guys. So from my perspective, I like got up, I felt pretty decent physically, went to use the bathroom, brushed my teeth, was filling water. And it felt like kind of a casual mill around and go soon. So like I found that out and I was like, all right, let's get out of here and go check on these guys. So yeah, I felt like we left. I was already planning on leaving camp, but then we definitely ended up leaving it a little bit more hurried than I fully expected to. Um, but physically I was like, man, I'm tired. But I feel good. Like I wasn't hobbling, I wasn't limping, I wasn't nursing something, I wasn't achy. Honestly wasn't even that tight, which shocked me. Um, so I had pretty high hopes of, oh, this is not going to be terrible. I didn't have any goals other than doing day two to some extent. The some extent could be rim to river, and come back. It could be beyond that. Because part of what I didn't know was I feel fine walking around camp, but what's it going to feel like to descend another 5,000 plus feet on that terrain? Like that is tough on the body. So that's what I didn't know. Um, is like, yeah, feel walking around camp's fine. Descending, we'll see what that's actually like.
Yeah, I woke up day two at 5. I was out hard from 12 to 5, and guys started milling around and slowly trickling out of the canyon. And I had talked to Gabriel, and he was kind of uncertain what he was going to do, but I was like, let's get to the rim and then we can decide. I did not feel great after waking up. I mean, I was pretty tight, pretty sore. And so, again, I was kind of like you in the sense of I wasn't really sure how far I was going to go, but I felt too good not to go. I knew that. And I knew that if I did not go, I would for sure regret it if I didn't at least, try and give some effort there. But man, I put my shoes on, and those 3 miles getting to the rim, it was like I had done nothing the day before. I felt great as I started to move. I mean, every little like tightness, ache, or whatever that I had totally went away. And so, yeah, Gabriel, Will Myers, and myself, we basically dropped in to the canyon at that point, went all the way down. So we drop all the way down. You went a little bit further, turned around at Manzanita. Spoiler alert. What are you like, rather than us recap, like, every step of the way down there? I think that a lot of, in especially in the culture we live in, where you have guys on social media saying, like, literally, two broken feet, two broken toes, doesn't matter. You finish all the way. Spoiler alert, too. Neither one of us did the full 100. Both of us probably physically could have done the full 100, but we chose not to. What's your thinking throughout the entire time of day two once you hit the river, as far as how far am I going to go? When am I going to turn around? Why am I going to turn around there? What are you thinking that whole time?
Yeah, we got to the river and then went to Phantom Ranch, which is, a mile past the river. And it was still me, Tyler, Brigham, and Tayson, the four of us. And they were all planning on going further than Phantom, but by very unclear amounts. Um, and we all ended up leaving Phantom together. As soon as we left Phantom, Boschma was struggling really bad with the heat. The dude's crazy fit and tough as nails, and he was struggling with the heat. And we were moving like so slow when we left Phantom as a group that I was like, I don't want to do this. Like, I don't want to move this slow. And we're going into the heat of the day in the hottest part of the canyon. So I was just like, Tyler, are you good? I want to make sure he was okay and that me leaving wasn't leaving him alone in the canyon, and that he felt okay. Um, so very brief conversation with him, and then just going back to, I like told those guys like, hey, I'm just gonna go at my own pace. So I ended up leaving them only because I was just moving at the pace I wanted to move, and then was hiking, and then it's like, oh, I could hike. Part of me was if I went, I forget what the math shaked out, but it was like if I go 4 or 5 miles past Phantom and then turn around, I would have 75 miles total. And I was like, well, if I go a couple more miles and get an extra 5 miles total, then I'll have 80 miles. And then it was like, well, shoot, if I'm doing that, if I went all the way to Manzanita, I think I'd have 85 miles. And I didn't commit to any. I'm just thinking through like what are all those I go, and ultimately just it's the heat of the day. I'm by myself. I want to be safe in the heat. I want to see how my body's feeling. I also know that every mile I go further, Like I still have to get back, right? Like it's not just 2 more miles, it's 2 more miles that you then have to repeat those two plus all the other stuff and then climb out of here. So long story short, yeah, I went to Manzanita, which is it's a rest stop or like a water stop at the base of the climb to the North Rim. So it's just shy of doing the whole thing, and since you just don't climb and then descend down. For me, there's like numerous factors in the reasons I didn't decide to do it. That I just been thinking about the whole time. One is you said, and I hate this term because it sounds like really easy to say, but I 1,000% mean it. I had zero questions of whether I could physically do it. Like I felt fantastic. So it's not that I couldn't. It's not that I didn't want to from oh, this is gonna hurt or this is gonna be hard perspective. I had two ultimate goals going into this. One was to do day two, whatever day two looked like mileage wise. The other one was to come home very healthy, not beat up, not injured, not sore, not with feet so wrecked that I couldn't do anything for a week or two. Like I wanted to come home and get right back into being physically active. One, just because I love it. Two, to be physically capable for my family. Like I've left them for 5 days. I want to come home destroyed and then be worthless for another week or 2 weeks or whatever. I want to be able to go hike with my son. I want to go bear hunt in a week or two. There's just a lot that I just wanted to come back healthy. And then I started thinking about the practical aspects of if I climb the North Rim and then descend, that's going to be another, call it 6-ish hours probably, which means I'm hiking through the night and getting a little bit of sleep. And then a factor that I didn't originally have on this trip, but had was I rented that car. So I was like, I have to drive this rental car back the next day. I'm the only one on the rental car from insurance, whatever perspective. So it's like, man, if I lose the opportunity to sleep again, like if I'm in the canyon for 6 more hours, I have no sleep, then I'm a zombie, then I'm trying to drive the next day. That was a little bit of a factor. But ultimately, I got to Manzanita, and it was just like, I feel really good about this. Like I'm gonna head back 85 miles in 2 days, 20,000 feet of elevation gain. I think my body's going to feel good. I think I'm going to go home really healthy. I think I'm going to go home really energized. And I've never done 85 miles in 2 days. So for me, it was like, it's a quote unquote new record and I feel really good about it. So that's as simple as it was, is like, I feel really good about what I did. My body feels great. I physically know I could do the other thing, but there's some downsides to the logistics of sleep loss. And there was a factor of, I wish I could have climbed the North Rim. I wasn't, going back to the physical perspective, stoked on descending again. Because for me, with the personal issues that I have with like my T bands and my knee, like that's where stuff starts to flare up. So it's like for me, the risk wasn't climbing the 5,000 plus feet, it was descending it. Um, so yeah, that was a long-winded but multi-factored situation to go, yeah, I'm gonna train at Manzanita, and I feel fantastic about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I was much of the same. So we hiked to the river. We went to Manzanita, and Will and Gabriel, which is who I was with, they both were, I mean, pretty much from the beginning saying that's about as far as they were going to go. That's all they really had interest in doing. And when we got there, I had a couple of options. One, I knew that there were guys, I knew that the rest of our group was down further, and that there's a likelihood that if I keep going, I'm probably going to run into them. But I also know that everyone tends to move faster than I do unless I'm keeping a mild jog. So I knew that ultimately what it meant was that if I continued on, I'd probably see people, but I'm finishing this by myself, basically. And the other factor of that was that probably means coming out at dark again. And so for me, I thought, and I don't know if like your decision and my decision is wisdom or life experience, or I don't know. I'm even apprehensive to say that because I can just hear people listen to this and some thinking, no, you just wimped out, right? I don't feel like that at all. The wisdom and the life thing for me was I thought, man, I could hike out of here with two really great friends and experience this. Something I'll probably remember the rest of my life over racking up miles. Seeing the canyon, I still haven't really seen it at this point, right? I mean, you're moving most of the time at dark, and you're moving so fast that you really don't have time to just stop and kind of look at it. As stupid as that sounds.
Oh, yeah, unless you've done it in this manner of like hiking it with some like uh pace in mind, you don't see it unless you're very conscious to look up and take it in. Yeah.
Yeah. And so for me, I thought, you know, when I am old, like, this is going to seem really dramatic, but you're really dramatic when you're doing stuff like this. Like, you just get a lot of time to think, and like, there's a lot of times that you just feel like crying and be like, man, I want to be a better dad, right? And I just thought at the end of this, like, I'm going to remember a day with two great friends taking this thing in than I will a bunch of miles by myself. And I felt great about. I mean, I guarantee you, if had I pressured them, they would have gone. But it just didn't make sense to me. I was happy with what I had done. I wound up with when I got to the top at the end of the day, I met Steve, Jake, and Jeff, who were going back to the rim to get Brian and Brian Chapman. And so I felt good enough that I just went back to the rim with them after being, partial part of the way down that power line pole. But I thought, I'm just gonna go up. Like I feel great about the mileage that I've done. It ended up being a touch over 70 and 18,000 feet. And I'd rather take this in with them. And so I did. And I do not, I mean, I fully enjoyed that day with those guys and do not
Did you guys turn at?
just after Phantom. So
Oh, earlier I thought you said something about Manzanita. I'm like, your mileage would have been way over 70.
yeah, no, we went to
Oh,
Phantom and then turned around there and started going back up and took our time going up and took a lot of pictures, took in the sunset. It was great. It was a great day. And contrary to the night prior, I felt excellent going up South Rim the whole time. And we got up at 6 or 7 p.m., met Steve and those guys, went back to the rim with him, picked up Boschma and Brian Chapman, and then walked back to camp and still had a great time, enough time to enjoy guys at camp. And that's part of it too, is as you have kids and you have families and everything's so busy, yes, it is a opportunity for you to challenge yourself. Yes, it is a mental grind. Yes, it is all of those things. But it's also like one of the very rare chances that you get to just be with a really great group of friends once a year and enjoy each other too, and like we look back at the Alaska Death Hike, and if you ask people, one of the things that comes up most often on that was where we all camped the second night. We're all together in this beautiful place, and we had this I mean, just this spectacular campsite. And Steve said I could have kept pushing on, but I thought this is too good of an opportunity to pass up for us all just to hang out here for the night. And he's right. I mean, those are the things that I remember. And as I get older, as I get more contemplative, I want memories more than I do miles. As stupid and as much of a cop out as that sounds, I feel like I'm always going to lean more into whatever gives me more memories than it does pure miles for the sake of some statistic on Strava. It was already a, quote PR for me, whatever that means, but still this mattered to me more. And so that's what I chose and don't regret it for a second.
yeah, that's awesome. It goes back to what when you asked me the first, like, what's the takeaway from the weekend of just feeling so accomplished and fulfilled and energized by this whole experience. I think it is because of everything you just said. It's because I did something very difficult physically. I did set a PR, but I also did it in a way where I was able to enjoy it. I was able to spend time with people, like just the whole experience, other than the travel bull crap, was just, um, yeah, just awesome.
I felt great waking. So, we go to sleep, wake up day three, we're getting ready to head back to Vegas to fly out and all that. I felt better at the end of day two than I did at the end of day one. And so, fast forward to getting home, I did not feel great the first few days of being home. Just had like a general overall fatigue. Felt like I could sleep a lot, but body felt great. But physically, other than that, didn't feel good. Feel great now. So great trip, and I'm already excited for the next one.
Whatever it may be.
It's funny, you come back from stuff like that, and you get a couple days to recuperate, and you just, I mean, want something else, and it's tough because you got a family and like you're trying to concentrate on them too. But I already find myself looking at the calendar of like, man, what could I fit in this summer or what have you? But I always enjoy those.
I've already sent something to Steve and is like, whether or not this is ever a death bike route, I'm going to do this. Like I was already looking at other trips, other routes, other ideas. So I fully relate to that for sure.
Any final big takeaways from the hike this year that you would share?
I don't I don't know. It's as cheesy as this sounds, my only takeaway or value I can feel like I would give to anyone listening would just be to, I don't even want to say encourage them to do it, but go tell them to do it. And by it doesn't have to be a Grand Canyon. It doesn't have to be a death hike, but some experience like this, some combination of put dates on the calendar, have a physical endeavor that gives you a purpose to have some consistency in training and preparation. Make it something you haven't done before in a way that scares you a little bit, where you don't know if you're going to succeed or you're going to fail. Um, do all that. If you can rope someone into doing with you, there's a great group dynamic to it. But I would also say don't necessarily feel like you have to wait for that either. Um, you can do something difficult, worthwhile, etc. solo. Um, I mean, the year that COVID hit, I was like in the middle of training for the death hike, and then COVID hit and the death hike bailed, and I ended up just like, man, I'm doing this training. I'm looking forward to something like the death hike. I can't travel because of COVID. I ended up doing my own thing. I would just say, yeah, do something like this and realize that what you'll learn from it, take away from it, how it will change you is so worthwhile. I mean, there's a reason that we keep doing this every year, and it's not because of it gives us a podcast
Yeah.
episode or so. Like I don't care if we never talk about it.
Yeah.
Do what I like. It is doing the thing is what matters.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that's the best I can give you. It was interesting. I uh have talked with so many of the guys from the death hike, most of which have, done numerous death hikes. And every year I feel like we have less helpful information or takeaways from a practical perspective on, oh, here's what I learned this year about footwear, or here's what I learned this year about nutrition, or here's what I learned this year about training. There's less of that. And part of that is just because so many of us have been doing this for so many years that you learn those lessons early. You figure out what works for you, and then you just stick with it. So I came out of this death hike and would go back and do it this weekend and not change a single thing about nutrition, hydration, footwear, strategy, gear, whatever. Which may make some people listening go, well, tell me what that was. If it was so perfect for you, tell me what it was. Tell me all the secrets. And I can't because it may not work for you.
Yeah, exactly.
It's what works for me. But that's the other reason you have to go do it. That's the other reason I want you guys listening to go do it, is because you will learn for yourself then what works for you.
Yeah. Nope, that's good. It's good advice. All
How
right.
about for you?
Takeaway for me?
Yeah.
You know, I'm apprehensive to even say this just because I feel like it's gonna, um, I don't know,
Say it anyway and then edit it out later.
drop my perception of if I even deserve to be doing these. Probably don't. There's always like a degree of, I think Justin Clement always says this. He's like, there's a degree of, what's he say?
I said something this year in the text about imposter syndrome.
Yeah. There's always like a degree of imposter syndrome. Like, I know me and I am not at this level, but thank you for inviting me. So I'm going to give it my all. Anyway, my takeaway is for me, I care so little anymore about the statistics and the promotion and talking about it and racking up pure mileage so I can post about pure mileage. And instead, I care a lot more about who I'm with, the overall experience that I have, the challenge to, making it challenging to myself, whatever that is, regardless of what like the statistics show. I feel so much, so accomplished after something like that based on whatever that looks like. Whereas I would say 5 years ago, 6, 7 years, 5, 6, 7 years ago, um, there was I'm almost ashamed to say this, but there was a much heavier swing towards what can I post about this, right? Like I'm going to do this so that I can post about it. And it was like this for the sheep hunt too. I almost don't want to say anything about it because I just feel like it cheapens it, and then there's always this doubt of like, well, I'm just doing it to post about it. Yet you also kind of feel like, well, this is kind of my job too, so I have to say something about it, so I will. And people are interested, and sometimes people that are new to stuff like this pull little things out of it, and in that sense, it's helpful and feels like it's valuable. But yeah, for me, I think the biggest takeaway is um, just how my motivation for doing it has changed so much, and I think that is why I feel so accomplished this year, as opposed to maybe in years past.
I can relate.
So I will in our show notes put both of our food lists, which will mean nothing to anybody because if you don't try these, they may not work well for you. But I'll post them in there so you can at least get some examples and see what our intake was over the first couple of days in there. And then depending on when we release this, I will also link the podcast that the Exo Mountain Gear guys did, so you can listen to their perspective too. And there's different guys that participated in the hike on those episodes, so you can get multiple different opinions from that. A couple guys that did the 100. Shout out to those guys too. But anyway, thanks for joining us.
Yeah. Best thing you ate on a hike.
Best thing I ate on the hike?
Yeah, like just what hit the spot.
Oh, dude, this never fails me. And if I can figure out a way how to get if we travel on any more of these, if I can figure out how to get the ingredients, I'm just going to figure out a way to fill my entire backpack with this. PB&J. Never fails. Oberti bought a $150 loaf of bread at the local mini mart, $600 bag of peanut butter. He made 2 PB&Js and he's like, here's the rest of this if anybody wants it. So I made one, ate it on the first day, I think it was. It never fails. It always sits good. What about yours?
I missed on the PB&J invitation because I was late to get into camp, so I was unaware of that. It wasn't new. I've done this for years on and off, but the Golden Grams and dehydrated bananas hit the spot
Yeah.
on this hike.
I had some dehydrated bananas and walnuts, and I found that if you get a couple of each in each bite, it tastes like banana bread. So I will be, I'll be throwing that in the future too. Mashed potatoes worked really good as usual. I think I've learned my lesson with Tailwind, Gatorade, etc. I never drink it, so like having a bottle or two for each day is probably the max. Didn't eat near the amount of gummy bears that I, normally might. Snickers bars worked really well. Just kind of little things. Oh, I'll tell you what worked good. Fritos.
Doritos did.
Oh man,
Right.
dude, I pulled those suckers out, and there wasn't a single. I could be on the bed of throwing up, and I'd pull those things out, and they'd bring me back. Those were good.
Yep. Good stuff.